How do we? Hello? Oh shit. Hold on. Hey Brian. Oh yeah, the test. Yeah, that was a while ago. I did that just to play around with it. I'm gonna keep the YouTube thing up so that we can. Oh. Damn it. Ah. Oh, shoot. Oh my god, I have to.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. Actually, Brian's calling. Hey, Brian. Well, just click on that link, and then it should get you because Paul's in right now, and I just sent you the link that should be able to get you in. Oh no, this. Oh, there you are, bro.
Can you see me?
No, I cannot see. I see a blue guy. Oh no, this.
All right, I'm gonna hang up.
Oh, there you are, bro.
Can you see me?
No.
No, I cannot see. I see a blue guy. This.
All right, I'm gonna hang up. Can you see me?
No.
This is crazy. All right, I'm gonna hang up. Can you see me?
Hello, Jeremy.
How's it going?
Good.
Can you hear me okay?
What's so funny going on there?
It's not me. I'm just moving stuff around. Too many monitors.
Yeah, that's why I didn't invite.
What's so funny going on there?
It's not me. I'm just moving stuff around. Too many monitors.
Yeah, that's why I didn't invite.
There's like a weird little delay going on.
Yep.
There's like a weird little delay going on.
Yep.
So how much are we charging per head for people to watch this?
Yep. The old goose egg, my friend. The old goose egg.
What's up, Brian?
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna try to fix this camera, but
The old goose egg, my friend. The old goose egg.
here, yeah, I don't have. It's weird. My headphones aren't working, so I'm not sure. Hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna try to fix this camera, but here, yeah, I don't have. It's weird. My headphones aren't working, so I'm not sure. Are you guys picking up on that? There's like this delay, right?
Yeah.
I'm getting a delay.
You guys picking up on that? There's like this delay, right?
Yeah.
I'm getting a delay.
You guys picking up on that? There's like this delay, right?
Hey, what do you think I should just go in Carl's room? Because we're going to like change his diaper and stuff.
I brought a diaper out here.
Okay.
But I wouldn't put it to bed out of the room, so.
That's fine. I can just mute it. James, you want to say hi to people? James, you say hi. Hi, people. That's my son. That's fine. I can just mute it. All right, out, Remy. Out. James, you want to say hi to people? James, you say hi. Hi, people. That's my son. Thanks.
Just for the record, I lost all of my accounts with the new pay-per-click interface today. So, very
Weird.
unhappy. Very unhappy. It was very buggy, though. There were a lot of things that didn't work. So,
Very.
Hey guys, this is an audio check. Can you hear me?
yes.
Very. Yeah, we can hear you.
Cool. Is the audio okay? I mean,
I think so.
so somebody's got they're watching it and they're on admin at the same time.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna go
Should
back
be,
and
yeah, if you're in the like on the Google side or on the YouTube side, if you just mute the screen, that should take care of that.
cool. Cool. All right, I just muted the screen, so on the YouTube side.
Okay.
Hey Brian, is that what was causing that delay?
Well, there's going to be a 10-second delay anyway. I just realized I had mine still running unmuted. Yeah, it's yes. Basically, it's just because there is a like a 10-second delay anyway between us speaking and when the watchers actually see it.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, it sounds like we're all good. It sounds like it's gone, so that's good. All right. So let's see. Just the Logitech.
I'm just trying to get the other one up so that I can actually see the questions without actually hearing us. Go to YouTube. All right, there we go.
I clicked the Q&A and it says this feature is disabled. I don't know if that's a setting or maybe a permissions thing.
Yeah, that's a we need to resolve that because obviously if people can't ask questions, then
Yeah, I don't know. Let me see here.
why is that disabled? Because generally I would see the questions on the YouTube side.
Yeah, I'm trying to fix that, like to get the Q&A up. Because it's on, doesn't it on the right-hand panel usually?
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
Let me pull it up real quick. Oh man, seriously. So I have to, it says we can only enable the Q&A app before the broadcast begins. I thought you'd be able to activate it during the broadcast.
What's that webinar Jam Studio? What does that do? Not a huge deal.
Are you actually running Webinar Jam?
No, I just saw it pop up. I didn't know what it was.
No, I mean I see it too. It just doesn't load. It just comes
Oh,
up
I see.
and basically fails to load. Because I know that Webinar Jam is just an add-on, but that would suck to have to restart this.
Yeah, I think we would have to though if we want to get the thing,
But
the
it's not going to
Q&A.
restart underneath the same one though. It's going to be a whole new link.
Yeah, that's true.
And we're at 55 now, so hold on here. Let me make a comment. Yeah. All right, so since everybody can hear us, obviously, folks, we're experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties. We may need to restart this. How we communicate that back out to on the landing page? Well, I guess it would have gone out in the email invite. Okay, so shoot. All right.
Oh, that's a really interesting. Hold on, let me try that.
Do you have another option?
Oh, here we go.
From the viewing side, there is comments, and then we could just address the comments there.
Yeah, we could do that. And in the events page, there's a way to share questions as well.
Really?
Yeah, here, let me show you this real quick. It's just like a comment type feature. I'll send it to you guys. All right, guys. Well, do you think that'd be good enough using the YouTube and the events page?
Well, I mean, it's kind of. I mean, we need to figure out whether or not they're engaged and where they're engaged. So either if they're on the YouTube page, then we can have them. We'd have to basically continue to refresh in order to see the new comments.
Oh, okay.
But
under the events page, it looks like they're live. Yeah, they are.
Okay, we need to make sure that everybody doesn't have both running, where you've got the YouTube audio going and your microphone, because we're still picking up a little bit echo from something.
I have mine on mute.
Yeah, mine too. Okay. I'd say let's go ahead and get started here in just a minute then. Be right back. Okay. Okay, so what do we end up deciding? We moving forward with this one?
I mean, if we could use the events page for the questions, they pop in live. What it looks like so far, like your test comment came through. So I think as long as we let everybody know, I think it'd be okay.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
All right. You want to kick it off then?
Yeah, those look good.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Cool. Let's see here. Everyone should. Real quick, guys. Here is under the events page, the Google events page. That's where you should put the questions for us. so that we can answer them as we go through. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, guys. We had kind of a technical difficulty thing, but that's fine. So thanks for joining us. We've got like 64 people watching now. So thank you guys for your time. This is the PPC Roundtable. We have 6 sponsored products consultants joining us to answer your questions about sponsored products and any questions you guys have about Amazon advertising. Today we have Brian Bowman, Brian Johnson, Jeremy Hunter, Paul Scherer, and Brent Zahradnik. I hope I pronounced that okay. And then me, Sean Smith. And so we're going to be on this for about an hour and a half. And yeah, I'll have everybody introduce themselves. So I'm Sean Smith. I'm a sponsored products consultant. I'm also an Amazon seller. Yeah, and that's me. I have an agency called Jungle Hustle where I help clients with mainly Amazon sponsored products. I guess we'll start with Jeremy.
Sure. I'm Jeremy Hunter. I've been a seller on Amazon since 2008. I've been consulting for other clients for about 3.5 years. And we started with sponsored ads in 2013, in fact. So we've been there for a number of years. And we do consulting. We're not currently taking on new clients, but we offer services, everything from warehousing to managing your pay-per-click. So we're more of a broad scope, whereas some of the other guys are more focused and perhaps more specifically experienced in pay-per-click.
Cool. Next we'll do Brian.
Which one?
Which one?
Bowman. We'll do Brian Bowman. Next up.
All right. So guys, I'm Brian Bowman. I'm PPC consultant for Amazon sellers. I also consult on other issues, outside traffic. So driving outside traffic, building out funnels, just generating more traffic to your listing or to your independent store. But yeah, I also have a group, AMZ Profit Pros. Hopefully, some of the people on the call joined from the group. So hi guys. And I also have a podcast dealing with kind of the same topics. So try to get some people who are really crushing it and getting them on the show to share ideas and tips on what's working for them. But yeah, that's me. I mean, I've been in e-commerce for over 10 years. I've been consulting for a few years as well, and yeah, I'm not really sure. Well, that's about it. So happy to be here. Happy to answer everyone's questions.
Cool. All right. So you want to? Okay. So I'm Brian Johnson. I'm a PPC consultant, coach, and trainer. I moderate along with Sean, the Amazon PPC troubleshooting group on Facebook, as well as I've got my own agency at brianrjohnson.com, as well as the our 4-week training program for sponsored products, which is sponsoredproductsacademy.com. Glad to be here.
All right. We'll hear from Brent.
Yeah, sure. Hello all. I've been doing Amazon sponsored product ads for a little bit over a year now, and AMS more recently. I have kind of an AdWords background. I worked in an agency for a few years, and now here I am. I focus pretty much exclusively on sponsored ads and advertising on Amazon, and have a bunch of clients from pretty large range, and I work with an agency based out of New York too, Bobsled Marketing, and some of them might be watching. Hello, guys.
All right, and finally we've got Paul.
Hey everyone, Paul Scherer here. Been doing Amazon consulting for about a year, Amazon seller for 2 years, and my website is amzppc.com. I also have a course on Udemy. It's called Amazon PPC Mastery. Here from sunny San Diego, California. Glad to be here.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, let's jump right in. I guess kind of the first thing that was on the agenda is observations from advertising on Amazon from 2015 to 2016. So I guess we'll kick it off. Who wants to kick off kind of the observations they've seen and the differences in the platform from last year to this year?
probably just pick somebody. Let's go with
All right,
Brent.
cool.
Let's go with me. All right, sure. I mean, one just off the top of my head, right? Match type introduction, because it existed before with Amazon, and then it was taken away, and then it was reintroduced. And I think that threw a lot of people through a loop. If you have any kind of background with other paid search platforms, you might have some better context for that. And now I heard the other day we have broad negative match, which is really, I think someone in this group, we were chatting about it privately, someone said dangerous. I agree.
Yeah, definitely. I guess I'll add into that next. So, you know, some of the changes that obviously as Brent said, is that you know, adding on the advanced match types, and of course that's going to continue to evolve and get closer to more of the AdWords world. Obviously, one of the things we saw in 2016 is a big uptick in the number of algorithm changes and system changes that were being applied on a regular basis, and how much the Amazon started fighting back against sellers and advertisers who were gaming the system and putting new rules and new restrictions in place in order to put in controls on that. It's very reminiscent of the Google AdWords days, and it makes sense given the number of Google staff that I believe that Amazon has gutted over the past year, just trying to get in some of their top-level search engine folks in order to help them combat and scale at the same time. So that's probably one of the biggest things, is just the regular algorithm changes. Not everything that changes. That's one of the things I hear quite a bit in the groups, is not every single change is an algorithm change. Quite a bit of it has to do with seasonality. However, we certainly have seen at least one major algorithm change each month in 2016.
Yeah, I would add just the changes that we're seeing just in the rise in cost per click as well. I think as more people enter the marketplace, more people know about the power of sponsored products, if used correctly, what it can do to launch your product and to boost your rank. I think just as more people enter the marketplace, I've seen cost per click go up. I think since January, I mean, I'm seeing on average about a 30% increase. It's pretty significant. So it becomes even more important to understand, have a strategy, and to just understand where you're profitable and where you're not, and kind of not spin your wheels on things that aren't giving you a payout, because there are other ways to get visibility through like organic rank. So kind of at first it's good to get that visibility with pay-per-click, but eventually you do kind of want to optimize so that you're running at least at break even or very close to it, so you're not bleeding money essentially.
Yeah, I think the increase in cost and complexity are something that we're going to be watching the rest of this year and into next year. I certainly have noticed the rise in CPC as well, with specific categories being extremely expensive. You guys probably know which ones I'm referring to, because we've all worked with them, and a lot of our clients and people who are probably on this call selling them. But there are still many out there that are really affordable, and there are plenty of areas in Amazon that I think are underserved. It's still such a lot of growth potential there. And yeah, with the match types and now with the new interface rolling out, the complexity is increasing. I think for the better. It's letting us do a better job, and yeah, I don't know, nothing else to say there.
I had made a few notes, in fact, and you guys are touching all of them. Like, Amazon's gotten more stringent and more refined with the tools. It's more competitive. Everybody's using it, and there's changes more often. So in the end, I really said you need to have more expertise. You really need to partner with somebody who spends their time thinking about this in order to really compete with the other guys that are working with somebody who spends their time thinking about this. So, and Vendor Express, I think, is going to be just another way people get access to Amazon marketing services, and that's just going to make it even more competitive. So, and bid costs are going up, that's for sure.
I'd say
I feel like there's a lot of sellers who come in with a very simple plan, and they end up dumping a lot of money into terms they feel are most important, and I think that drives up the cost for those terms, and that's part of the reason we're seeing higher bids, because people come in, they say, oh, I want to just make sure I'm showing up on the first page, and they start a new campaign and put a $5 bid in there, and it's like, whoa, they're blowing out the market.
The changes to relevancy have made a big impact. no longer are the days that you can kind of just stick something in the back end and start showing for it. So for us, that's a big change in really what's going on with the listing and how that pertains to what you're doing with PPC. Also, just one big change is that you used to be able to kind of create campaigns and really see impressions from the get-go, but Amazon's just really favoring those old campaigns, so that's been a big change.
I just follow up on the relevancy. I think that's a big issue. Is relevancy is becoming more and more important, and it's somewhat harder to figure out as they keep making changes. So yeah, relevancy is a big issue.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's become like more of a partnership with a lot of my clients, wherein we have to figure out, okay, how are we going to modify this particular offer or product in order to show up for these terms? And it takes a little bit of wrangling with seller support sometimes too. I was dealing with one of these things just this morning, messaging back and forth and saying, is this wrong? Does this need to be replaced? And sometimes they get good guidance, sometimes they don't.
You have to be a little more selective too. I mean, 2 years ago you could put a lot of terms in your back-end keywords or your title and start matching on those, even if the relevance to your product maybe not quite as tight as it should be. And these days, that's not the case anymore.
Yeah, you definitely touched on something there as far as being able to specifically target competitor brand names as well as misspellings. That was a lot easier in 2015. They've definitely tightened that up. It's still possible. It's just a lot harder. You have to be a lot more tricky as far as how you go about it. Okay. I guess one of the questions I was going to ask to kind of append to this particular topic is, what do you see that we used to teach or we used to use in 2015? We touched on it already, but what was used in 2015 that we would safely say that doesn't work that way anymore? It's changed enough in 2016 so that you kind of have to abandon that old practice. I know one of the ones that comes to mind is what I used to teach previously, which was regarding to cannibalism. I still get questions all the time because it's out there in the information where cannibalism is a big concern because it can hurt your listing. Originally, cannibalism, where you have a duplicate keyword, there used to be back in probably August, September of 2015. There used to be an actual bug on the sponsored products platform where if you had a duplicate keyword across different campaigns and different ad groups, that you could either have all the traffic go to one, you could have the traffic split between the two, or the bug was that it would cancel out traffic to either one. That was the cannibalism concern back in 2015. That bug was fixed, I think, in like maybe November of last year, but I still hear that on a regular basis where somebody says, well, I can't do that because that'll cannibalize and then I won't get any impressions. No, that's an old concept that doesn't apply to 2016. You still get your traffic split or committed to one keyword or another, and so as a best practice you want to try to limit that, but it's not, you don't run into getting 0 impressions like you would last year.
I guess one thing that I used to kind of maybe teach prior to now is kind of how I approach keyword research, and that kind of goes back to the relevancy thing. Like, when I do keyword research, I'm much more selective whenever I look at keywords, just to make sure that they're relevant. Just because, like you guys said, they're redirecting traffic to more relevant terms, and they're tightening up the relevancy factor, and like we're kind of seeing that month over month as they do their updates. So I do a lot of like more meticulous. So like I'll pull keyword lists, but I do like to review them manually just to see what would work for my client's offer and what wouldn't in terms of bidding on them in the campaigns. And it's a time thing too, because the quality of my keywords is going to reflect in the quality of my work as a sponsored products guy. So I want to make sure that I can pull the best keywords for my clients and for their client's offer, rather than maybe throwing in too many duds or just doing too much like bulk stuff from not analyzing it or filtering it myself. That's something I've been doing recently. So far it's been working out. Plus, it kind of helps me learn the market a little better as well.
I'll just kind of, I guess, add to that discussion about what things that have changed, and I get a lot of questions about it, especially from people who've seen some of the material that I've put out, and kind of recently this has been coming up more often. Is I generally, and I think most of us agree on this, that we try to limit our campaigns, at least when starting out. So we'll have like that auto campaign for the product, and then I'll talk about having this testing campaign for the product, and it'll have multiple ad groups with multiple match types, and kind of keep them very themed and tightly grouped. But then I have this winning keywords, or my best keywords, and what I'm finding is it was always the case that there was an emphasis on click-through rate in the algorithm that more heavily weighted that, so that affected impressions and how much traffic your campaigns got. But it seems to be even more important now. So I try to just consolidate everything as much as possible into that testing campaign. And the only time that I would ever move keywords out of there that are doing well, it's like a must-needed basis that you're doing such heavy testing, you're blowing out your budget on testing, that your really important keywords are not getting the traffic that they should be getting. So maybe we'll separate those out. But for the most part, for most clients I work with, those two campaigns, kind of that testing and that auto, that's usually enough. So I get a lot of questions about that. People will move keywords over and they're like, but wait, now they're not performing the same. And I think my best hypothesis on that, and I don't know, I maybe hear it from the other guys in the group, but it's that age of that campaign that it just doesn't have that click-through history, possibly that sales history, and I guess to prove that a little bit is once we kick off ad groups in that aged campaign, impressions seem to pick up pretty quickly. I think Brian had mentioned not too long ago he had an ad group or a set of keywords that within, I think, under an hour or something, they were getting impressions, which would have never happened in my experience even a few months ago. So.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably touch on some best practices throughout this call. We may kind of want to start thinking as far as if we look at a couple of questions that probably each of us can answer independently, is maybe what a best practice is that you'd recommend to everybody watching, as well as we'll stick with the best practice question as one that we'll address later on, but I'm sure it'll come up throughout our discussion here.
Hey, Brian, didn't you have a question submitted to you by somebody, right, Brian?
Oh, the one I sent over to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember now. I'm gonna draw a blank on that really quick. I know we've got a couple of questions that are coming into the event page right now. We can certainly address those too. But
oh yeah, definitely. Let's start with Aaron, if that's cool with you guys. It says, why is it a problem to bid on low-quality keywords or slightly irrelevant keywords if the major issue is that Amazon is increasing the requirement for relevancy? In other words, if the bar has been raised such that relevancy is more important, then that implies irrelevant keywords get less traffic. Therefore, why is it important to prune out these relevant words?
So
I would say you're just not going to get the impressions on them. I mean, I don't know if it's so necessary to remove them, but you're just not going to see impressions like you used to.
But also to Brian's point, your click-through rate's going to suffer. Right? If they're not relevant and the click-through rate is low, it's going to impact the overall click-through rate of that ad group and then the campaign, and that may have impacts on other keywords in the group or other ad groups in the campaign.
yeah, that kind of plays into how the ad option works, which I discussed in another video, but just kind of really briefly for those who haven't seen that. But as far as Amazon's ad auction, there's two parts to it. There is a filtering part where it's basically a pass-fail, where you either get accepted into the pool of advertisements that actually get shown to shoppers, and that can be based off of whether or not you're bidding on a keyword that matches up to what a customer is searching for, whether or not your ad is even eligible to run an advertisement. There's a couple of other basically filter checks that it does that can eliminate you from the list, and then it moves on to the ranking or the sorting portion of it, where it's basically where Amazon is deciding as far as like which ad is going to be shown first, which one's going to be shown second, third, and as we've already discussed here, is that the best, one of the better practices on that is to have fewer campaigns and longer running campaigns that have accumulated a number of clicks and have a higher click-through rate. That's going to be scored. You're going to be scored better when Amazon goes to decide in which order the ads are shown than if you have a brand new campaign or multiple campaigns that are very thin or very new that have low click-through rates. Those are going to compete less so than the ones who are long-running and established with high click-through rates. Those are going to give preference. You can upset that by simply bidding higher, which is what seller support will tell you. They don't necessarily know why that is because they're just told to tell us that. But when they say to bid higher, they're basically saying bid higher in order to compensate for having a weak campaign. But if you already have a long-running, strong campaign with a high click-through rate, you won't have to bid near as high as your competitors may have to in order to achieve a similar ad spot.
Yeah, it essentially acts as like a multiplier, right, Brian?
It does. Yep.
That ad rank, kind of similar to if you have any AdWords background, for those of you listening, but it's like that ad score. It's a whole equation that so two $1 bids will not be the same depending on all these other factors.
Yeah, I've even witnessed bids for priority terms for some clients actually go down over time. I've needed to spend less money on them as the campaign has aged and as it's been more consolidated. Say it's gone down by 30 cents or something, but we're still at the top, or we're still getting a high volume of clicks on it every month.
Yeah, I think the challenge on that is that it was noted earlier. I think that was Brian. I think that was you who mentioned it. Is that the average bid price, the average CPC continues to increase the more competitive we get, especially going into any kind of a competitive season like the late holidays, November, December. And so while the age of your campaign, right? I guess that's part of one of the things is that if that's the case, if you get your campaigns established that you plan on using for November, December, you get those established now and you start building that high click-through rate, you're going to have a huge advantage over those people who are just starting up brand new campaigns in November and trying to compete. They're going to have to pay through the nose in order to get their ads shown, versus you come in with your well-aged and high click-through campaign that's been running forever, that's been running since June, and you're going to have a definite advantage when it comes to your bidding and your ad placement.
So a question, like if you have an Amazon account and you've got a campaign that you ran a year ago for a few months and then you ended up pausing it because you weren't sure. Now you want to go back and run some ads. Should you add your new groups to that old campaign and restart it? Is there value in that old paused campaign?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not as much value because once it hits, that's a very good question, actually, good clarification, because once you've had a campaign that's been paused or archived for a significant amount of time, and I would say 4 to 6 weeks maybe, it has the same kind of equivalent effect. Is it because Amazon is basically looking at trending data of the campaign, similar to trending conversion rates on a product that runs out of stock. You run out of stock for a few weeks, and basically that data continues to just get less and less and less as the farther and farther it gets away, the longer you're out of stock. So when you come back in stock, you basically have to start over because all of your conversion rate data that Amazon had learned from your previous product run is now gone. It's expired, basically. The similar kind of metrics expiration occurs on the sponsored side if you have a campaign that has stopped running for a significant amount of time. So you can certainly
just to add to that, I would say, you can still pull the winners from that, right? Those may still be valid for your product, depending on the seasonality. Yeah, so don't be afraid to mine for gold there and pull those out into a new one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because once you archive a campaign, you start losing your data, if I recall correctly.
Right, you're going to have to go back some older search term reports, right?
Right. Yeah, and I guess that kind of brings up a good point. Is that if you're not already scheduling weekly search term reports, then get that scheduled. Don't wait, because 6 months down the road, you're going to be like, well, how do I look 6 months back? Well, you can't now. It's gone. and even third-party software has its limitations as far as how far back it can reach. So it typically is only 60 days, and so if you're not already having those in your advertising and advertising reports, each report or most of the reports, I think we're up to what 8 or 9 reports now. The ones that you can schedule for the weekly basis or the monthly run, start those scheduling. Get those, cranking every single week until maybe 6 months from now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I do have, so I have a question from actually one of Brian's, somebody sent him a question. It says, can PPC advertising help me rank for specific keywords? If not, what is the best strategy for improving keyword rankings for specific keywords?
Best to me or Brian Bowman?
Oh, well, it was the question you sent me, so it's to anybody.
That one, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So read that one again then. Sorry.
Sure. Can PPC advertising help me rank for specific keywords? If not, what is the best strategy for improving my rank on specific keywords?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of I'm still hearing a little bit of echo here. I'm not sure if somebody's got their audio on, but maybe we can mute our lines when we're not speaking. But as far as using advertising in order to rank a product, I believe more in the value of identifying your target market, using the advertising in order to understand your target market so you can better focus, better optimize your organic product listings so that you can basically pinpoint specific niche keywords and search terms that you can optimize for not only your advertising but your organic product listing. And then that will give you a better chance of basically moving into a keyword niche that maybe has less competition that you can rank higher for. And so I don't specifically use the pay-per-click advertising in order to drive enough sales in order to make a big difference on my organic ranking. It's certainly possible, because if you figure that your advertising may on average generate 20% of your unit sales, you could probably have up to a 20% increase in the number of units. If that makes a difference in your particular product niche and the keywords you're going for, then absolutely drive that. Be willing to spend to break even or to even spend more if that truly makes a difference with your with selling enough products in order to make a difference on your organic position. I prefer to go after the audience research benefits of sponsored products.
No, I agree with Brian. In general, it's not a practice that we use, but there are some clients who specifically say, I want to overbid on this keyword. So we'll bid more than would be recommended, and it's not profitable, but it does impact sales velocity.
Yeah, I've been in that situation as well. My finding is that only if the conversion rate of that particular term is so good that it improves the overall conversion rate for the product, does it count more strongly as a vote for that search term. Would you guys agree with that?
The conversion rate is huge.
Yeah, only if it boosts it. You can't put a round peg in a square hole. You can force the issue by bidding highly, right? But ultimately, if customers aren't finding it relevant and they're not converting against it, it's not going to help your rank.
Yeah, I think that also kind of goes back to building out the listing too. So if there's a specific keyword I want to really boost rank for, yes, there is that factor that if I'm advertising more based on the kind of overall sales volume, maybe pay-per-click can boost it, but it does kind of like the other guys have said, it does mean I also have to kind of change up the listing. So if there's a certain sort of sub-niche that I'm finding people are buying this product for, then I'm going to tailor the listing for that. I'm going to switch up, particularly the beginning of the title, a little bit to cater to that other word or other secondary use of the product. So it's a basketball and it's also used for a kickball. Then whatever I'll put something that, but that goes more to the conversion rate. That it's like a holistic approach. It's not just a $10 bid so that people see my ad all over the place. I'm also changing the user experience to just convert more for that term. But yeah, I think just boosting the only time it's really helped that we just throw a ton of money at a particular keyword, it's on a lower overall sort of sales volume keyword, I guess. But if it's already a competitive term, and the only thing you do is just crank up bids, I've rarely had the experience where that's boosted me up the page organically for that search term.
Mm-hmm. And I think the corollary to this is the gradual refinement of search terms too. You're going to find ones that are repeat offenders, so to speak, and you'll put those in exact, and as the thing matures, they should be performing consistently well, right?
The competitors are also going to change the landscape of what it means when someone searches a specific term. You might not be able to get the same price that you got before for your item if everyone's driving it down and all of a sudden you kind of slip a little bit. So definitely a multi-tiered approach. It might be pricing, might be changing something in the bullets or the title, and then throw a bunch of PPC on it. Nothing too crazy, but I've definitely recently seen an approach like this have a big impact.
Yeah, I kind of like kind of going into what Brian said about using it for audience research to inform other marketing tactics. Like for example, I had a client where the product like its use was a little ambiguous, I guess you could say, but with the search terms report and campaign performance report, mainly search terms report, we could see the keywords that were converting, and it informed who the audience was. And so that can help with alternative marketing methods as well. And also, Bowman, how you mentioned a holistic approach. That's where you can tell your client, like, this is kind of the demographic that's buying on Amazon. Since pay-per-click is only one marketing channel, you can inform them so that they can market, in other places, like, I don't know, reaching out to bloggers, things like that. So using it for audience research is really, really beneficial for the long term and finding where the product fits.
Yeah, definitely.
I know that didn't necessarily go into the ranking specific keywords, but looking kind of at the bigger picture and how everything functions in terms of the whole marketing spectrum. The cool thing is that pay-per-click helps with that, the data.
Yeah, but I think you touched on a really good point in that, and as we each have, is that one of the things that we typically hear is we have, and obviously we're speaking to existing clients, potential clients, people who are basically picking up and trying to learn the animal that is sponsored products, but there is a common misconception that we continually hear in that it's a shortcut. If somebody they launch a new product and they come out and they say, okay, how do I use advertising in order to just sell my product? I just want to sell more units. And a lot of times, as if they came in through like a private label selling course, for instance, they're sourcing products that are opportunity, not because they have a particular knowledge or passion about the product. And so what they come in with is that they don't really know that product as well as they think they do. They spent the time researching it and sourcing it, getting labels on it and that kind of stuff, but it's until you actually put it out on the market and starting to get some kind of feedback as far as the terminology that an audience is using in order to find a product and whether or not they even convert to your product is when you really start discovering that there's a whole other set of terminology that you wouldn't even think about as a business person trying to launch this product that you're not necessarily familiar with, that you can use the advertising in order to figure out, like, wow, there's 5, 10 other ways to describe this kind of product. There's also different applications. I have a number of clients that they go in saying, it's like, I'm selling this product over here, and it turns out it has a dual purpose in a completely different category that they wouldn't even thought about, but it turns out it's some niche thing somewhere else, or it's popular for another purpose, and you wouldn't even know about that unless you're running the advertising and you're analyzing the search term data in order to figure out what words are people using and what's the result of them seeing my advertisement for my product. Are they actually clicking through on my ad and seeing my listing? And ultimately, once they get there, are they actually converting to that product based off the original search that they created? It's huge insight as far as the buyer psychology and how you can tune your message, your advertising, your product listing, and even spin off new products in order to target niche audiences and have a much higher conversion rate as a result.
Yeah, one thing I like to do to try to tap into that a little bit, which is just kind of like a tip for folks when they're starting out, is take what you think is the main keyword and dump it into Google Keyword Planner and look at the ad group ideas. Not necessarily the keywords, but look at the ad group ideas, because what Google will do is, using like latent semantic indexing, it'll create what it believes are relevant themes for this product. And usually, if you put camping tent, then you'll see tent, camping, outdoors, backpacking. But then you might get backpacking, and you might get some ideas there that you're like, okay, maybe I'll use that as a seed keyword. Take that seed keyword, dump it into a tool like, any one of the Amazon suggested search tools like, Keyword Tool Dominator, if you have AMZ Tracker, and use that as a root keyword to try to get a nice keyword list. But yeah, to get ideas for what your product may be used for, I like to use those ad group ideas. But like Brian said, it's amazing. I've had several clients where it'll educate the audience, like who your target audience is. It's amazing. You think you're selling a product. I've had clients that they think they're selling to guys. It's a workout piece of equipment, and they have this really kind of rough listing, the bullets, the images, everything, and it turns out a lot of women and moms are buying. It's interesting when you research that, and now you got to go back and maybe make your listing more gender neutral, and then now you kind of bring in this whole other audience. I think who was it? I think it's maybe Russell Brunson who calls it like the attractive character. It's like how you portray your product or your service or whatever. It's interesting who it will attract, and you can monitor that with all that market research you get from pay-per-click.
Yeah, in addition to the small amount of analytics you get from that custom page you build out in AMS. When you drive traffic to that page. Now that's a little bit more advanced, and I think you guys all know what I'm talking about. Some of the audience may not, but there is some basic analytics you can get as a seller doing that, and that includes male, female, age groups, right?
Yeah, that's a whole separate topic. We could talk about that for days. That's probably like cutting edge stuff that I'm doing is a lot of audience analysis, like who is buying my product, who's buying my customers, my client's product, and that starts getting into sort of retargeting and targeting folks outside of Amazon, but also inside Amazon, like you said, catering my listing to that. But I think maybe that's a little more. Maybe that's for like part 2, right? The roundtable part 2.
That's more like part 3, yeah.
Yeah. I think we have some pretty good questions though coming up. So I don't know if we want to start answering those.
Yeah, I was just going to jump into that because we did kind of get a stockpile of questions going. So I'll go ahead and run through the first one. So we answered Aaron's first question. Now we've got Benjamin DeVries. I would be interested to see if there was a best practice with bidding that would potentially keep the bids lower in Amazon for everyone instead of shooting straight for $5, i.e., do you up your bid gradually until you start seeing impressions and see your product on page 1 for the sponsored ad, then leave your bid there until someone outbids?
Yeah, I mean, a part of that has to do with there's a common misconception out there that we hear all the time that has to do with, well, I'm bidding according to what the estimated page 1 bid, and I don't know, I've lost count as far as the number of times that I've basically kind of refuted that that figure, but as far as like using some kind of a metric in order to determine where you should be bidding at on keywords when you first start out, and a lot of times you don't have that information, and estimated page 1 bid is not going to be particularly accurate. It's primarily focused on broad matching. In fact, it's lost. I use it not for the bidding itself, but to kind of a pass-fail in certain techniques that I use. But in the new campaign manager, they actually removed estimated page 1 bid values. So that's kind of interesting that they're going that direction too. But when it comes to you're trying to start out and figure out what bid range that you need to be in. So the whole idea of the shooting straight to $5 is not to set the bar as far as how much you're willing to spend and then just keep spending $5. It's just simply just to see what's a high level range, and sometimes it's even higher than that, but you're just kind of trying to identify what are some of the expensive keywords that I will not be doing long term. Because most likely a $5 keyword or even a $3 keyword is probably too expensive to be sustainable for most products, unless you have an expensive product or you have some kind of a back-end subscription, or you're basically using it as a loss leader in order to get them on an external list. But you have to start somewhere in order to kind of see what the competitive range is for the bids, and then you scale it back to what the actual market range is. It's that market range that you're going to settle into. That's what's going to set the pace for the market, and obviously you've got your competitors who are also setting the pace. Not everybody's going to be at $5 at the same time, because frankly $5, $4, $3, that's not sustainable for most products. So you'll settle back down to a lower bid anyway, but knowing what your expensive ones are is good to know for keyword research.
Yeah, it's probably one of those common questions probably most of you guys get is, what's a good bid amount? And everyone kind of wants that relative measure to maybe the estimated page one bid or whatever. But yeah, it's just, we typically just define the range for each keyword, and you'll find there are going to be some keywords that you'll bid $5 or $3 or whatever, and your cost per click is at $1. And there's some that $5 won't get you onto page one. You need to get kind of that barometer first, and then from there you start optimizing, and you kind of figure out what you want to go after. But yeah, that's probably one of the most common questions we get. I know I certainly do. Is what's a good bid? What's a good ACOS? And how much? And what should my daily budget be for my campaign? So.
Right. I would say that the estimated first page bid is helpful mostly as an indicator of if that keyword is going to receive impressions, rather than is this number the actual number that I'm going to be spending to get on the first page. So usually if I add like a bunch of keywords and I see those that have an estimated first page bid, it means I can probably expect those to actually get impressions and clicks. Some of the other ones, not so much. What do you guys think of that?
I agree. I do that too. Like I just, if it doesn't have an estimated page one bid, in my head it's just that Amazon isn't getting enough traffic, or they don't have enough data to make a guess about the estimated page one bid. That's just a theory, but that's how.
That's the same way I use it too. Is a pass-fail basically.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if they keep the estimated page one bid report, even if they don't include it in the user interface.
I think they will. Hopefully they update it or they modify it a little bit. It still has value, but just not what most people think. It's
right.
it's not a good indicator for what most people. I think it causes more confusion and more support questions than it helps. So that's probably one of the reasons why they got rid of it in the new interface.
And what it's not is estimated position one bid, which would be a lot more useful.
Yeah, that would be bid plus.
And higher, yeah.
Which is what, 50% above what you're willing to pay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see.
I was going to say that's kind of rolls into Alex's question regarding spending per day, and quickly for Adrian's question, yes, we are recording this. That's it'll come up on YouTube when we're all done with this.
Yep. I was just going to address that, but yeah. Should we be? How much should be? What should we be spending? Okay, so you think we're good with that one with Alex's?
Well, no. I mean, we can certainly touch on that. I mean, it's kind of an arbitrary number that Alex is asking, and basically saying what should we be spending per day on average for each campaign. Here's kind of a rule of thumb that I usually do. If you figure that on average most sellers, I'm just talking about averages here, is that most sellers have probably about 20% of their units sold come from their advertising. That's going to vary completely depending on whether or not they're a wholesaler, private labeler, whatever the case is, the number of SKUs they have. It's going to range quite a bit. But kind of averages across hundreds of accounts that I have seen, 20% is kind of a nice average. Now, if you figure that you're running a 50% ACOS, and I can tell you that most people who are advertising on Amazon, it's closer to 70%. Which is one of the reasons why we're so busy, is even if you got down to 50%, 50% ACOS is basically saying that for every dollar that you spend, you're making $2 in gross sales. And it doesn't mean you're making a profit, because most people don't actually make a 50% net profit margin. However, if you were to take a 50% ACOS as an example, based off of a 20% overall spend, you could probably say that of your overall sales that you have on Amazon, organically and sponsored, then 10%, spending 10% on advertising would fall into that range. So 10% of your overall gross sales. Now, obviously, that for most people, that's probably not actually sustainable, because 50% ACOS is usually higher than what their actual profit margin is. And I would say, and I'd like to hear from everybody else on this too, is I would say probably 4 out of 5 clients that I talk to have never taken the time to calculate what their actual net profit margin is, so they don't know what their break-even ACOS should be.
I find it. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just found it really interesting with the. I don't think we've talked about these numbers as a group, but I mean, I think we all probably figure out, what's the average ACOS and percent of sales. And the interesting thing is, my percent of sales from pay-per-click is 25%. Yours was 20%, and I'm kind of guiding all my clients to 10% advertising of total sales, which is the exact same number you had, which is really interesting. And I think, my better accounts are doing between 5 and 8% of total sales as marketing costs, and that's how I start their budgets. When I either get them as they already have pay-per-click or they're starting new, I use that as kind of like my benchmark, and that's how I set my budgets to start.
Yeah, and for the audience's sake,
I'll say that too.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just agreeing with Jeremy there. I think you were actually the one who first turned me onto this idea, Jeremy, of tracking all these, because. Yeah, what I find is clients with accounts that are performing well, anywhere from 8 to 12% of revenue for that time period can be, like that's the percent that's being devoted to ad spend, and 10% is like a really good rule. I see Brian nodding. I see you other guys nodding there. So, yeah, I think that's good, and anywhere from maybe 25 to 30% is part of the account, and then maybe a lower percentage of overall revenue is maybe best. So I think we're kind of coming up with some of the same numbers there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Brian Bowman can speak to this, because he's the real numbers geek among us numbers geeks. Don't you have like an actuarial background, Brian?
I mean, there may be some extra like number crunching going on. Sometimes I need to pull away from the numbers and just like 10%, 15%, like using multiples of 5. But the only time I'll say I'll go above that is, and I have found this in some clients, it has to be the right keyword, the right client, but I will back into what our ad spend should be if we're trying to really bump sales. So if we have a strategy, okay, this is our hot product, we definitely want to bump sales for this product, it sells well. I will look at sort of what percentage of our sales are PPC, and I'll use that to back into what should we be selling, how much should we be spending to achieve our objective overall sales that we're trying to hit. So, because what I find is, if you get the impressions up, that's usually a kind of a precursor to increased sales. And I think what happens is, and it's interesting because that the sale doesn't happen at the same time. It's you can see the sessions tracking. And the sessions, we start driving the traffic, sessions go up, but sales stay the same. And then there's this kind of delay, and then you see sales will bump up, particularly on products that convert well. And my best theory so far on that is Amazon's retargeting that they're doing themselves. I feel like once the people are landing on the page, maybe maybe there's all the retargeting going on inside Amazon, outside Amazon, once that cookie's been dropped. So if I've done kind of all my homework, I know it's a good product, I know it converts well, and all we have to do is just drive some traffic to it, I will kind of back into how much I should be spending. Now again, that's probably a little bit more like advanced. I think at first the rules that we're putting out there are perfect, but yeah, just kind of a different take on it, that's all.
I'd like to kind of throw in a comment on that too, is that just to make sure we don't introduce confusion, but the sessions and page views are, for those who are watching, the sessions and page views are more of an organic metric versus the impressions and conversions on for advertising is more the advertising metric. And so I think what you're basically saying is that because of Amazon's reaction to heavy advertising and getting people on using advertising in order to get more shoppers onto our page, then they start getting in that retargeting, the emails, and basically coming back to it as far as, you recently visited this. And when they return, that's when it's starting to kick off the sessions, which is an organic metric.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We got another question from Jimmy Patel. Thank you, Jimmy. Is it true that you will get impressions on the keywords in PPC which you have targeted in content or hidden search terms somewhere? If not there, you can't get impressions in PPC. So basically, if your keywords aren't in your content, you won't get impressions, and if they are, you will. He's kind of asking if that's true or not.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's all about relevancy, right? So I think in the past we all agreed title and bullets were kind of the primary area we want to focus on if you want to try to get those PPC impressions. And then there was a change. What was it? A couple months ago, where it was only title that was driving the PPC impressions, and then they backed that out. It was back to back-end search terms and PPC. And I think we recently, as a group, we were talking, and the product descriptions are being indexed now for a lot of products. I know for my clients, it's almost across the board now. And we were just talking that we are seeing now keywords that are, or terms that are exclusively in the product description. I believe they're also showing up in PPC customer search terms. And just to clarify, I know this comes up a lot, but maybe just for everyone on the call to be totally clear, your keyword based on a match type will draw different customer search terms. So if you have an exact match, it'll be the exact, whatever the customer types, that's going to show an impression for that exact match term. But if you have other match types, other words can start coming into that keyword. So if you have, sleeping bag and you have a broad match, then best sleeping bag for overnight camping or something, whatever it is, that you can pull in extra terms. And those extra terms usually are somewhere in the listing. Not always, and that's kind of getting into more fringe topics. But the point being, to answer Jimmy's question, yes, it is driven by relevancy. And one of the more interesting things that has emerged recently is that product description. So did you guys have any observations on that in your clients at all?
Yeah, I had a theory. I think I learned from one of you guys, actually, which is Amazon also looks at keywords customers are using in reviews, and then maybe subsequently the words that you use to reply to said reviews. What do you guys make of that?
The questions and answers.
Well, the Q&A and, well, I don't know. I guess the reviews is the one I heard of, but you have some insight on that. Yeah,
well, I guess my view on that has been I've observed that with Q&A. And I have not observed that with reviews. And that's something to kind of, that's why it's nice to get, a panel like us together, is because we all work in multiple categories, but we also observe that there are differences from category to category that, may create exceptions to the rules. But kind of like what Brian was saying, as far as the additional fields, as far as the title, the front-end meta content, such as like the bullets in the description, those are also picking up now. They're also picking up matching for keywords that you're advertising against. Haven't done a lot of extensive testing as far as the review words, though. Now I'm kind of curious, though. Thanks for bringing that up.
I did some testing on reviews. I didn't see correlation that was specifically in health and beauty, though. So, and as we know, different categories perform differently. The rules are not the same. So I think it's a good thing for people watching is rules that might work in home improvement don't work exactly the same in health and beauty all the time. There's some core stuff that does, but there are some fringe items that don't.
Yeah, we even see that. You can even see that by, if you take 10 of your target keywords and you run a search on Amazon, you'll find that sometimes the ads don't even show up at all for certain search terms, for certain keywords. And then sometimes you get a different layout. You get a tiled layout versus an inline row layout. So the results can vary at the keyword level, not just at the category level. That makes our job a lot tougher, but we still do it.
There's a lot of mystery that goes behind the scenes and a lot of data that Amazon has that we don't have access to. I mean, a customer might do a search, not find the product they want, research, and then if they buy your product, all of a sudden, there's some relevancy going on, because I've seen where, the term doesn't exist in my back end or anywhere, and I'm showing impressions for it. And so, yeah, I think there is kind of a lot of things that you can't really control that Amazon's looking at behind the scenes.
I've seen that as well. I want to just support what Paul said. I'm seeing the same thing. Like I'll be bidding on keywords that we don't have anywhere in the content, and like you said, we're getting impressions and clicks and sales and things like that. So yeah, definitely a lot of background scene stuff. That's a good point, Paul.
I think for competitors, especially because that's a topic that comes up a lot, I think that's one where the competitor keyword can become relevant when that's the word that they have been searching for, or maybe something they bought in the past, and then they buy yours.
Huh. Yeah.
Right. I think some of that matching for terms that maybe you're not bidding, maybe in the auto target, comes from customers also viewed, like all of that data that we don't have access to on a pay-per-click basis is obviously relevant on the Amazon backend somewhere. I think they're translating that into search data too.
All right, guys. We got, I think I counted like 8 questions left, so we'll move on to the next one. We've got Chris G. Thank you, Chris. Let's see here. Aren't the juices flowing? Do you guys feel the juices flowing?
Oh, I feel the juices flowing, Sean.
We had a rocky start.
Maybe I think it's my cold brew though. It's gone, so I think that's what's flowing right now.
Maybe that's what's flowing for me too. But we had a rocky start. But I'm feeling it right now.
All right.
All right, Chris. You're lucky. You got us on the high end of this. Chris G asked, with the increase of 5,000 search terms, it's pretty hard to get 5,000 relevant keywords. Is it better to have 1,000 quality keywords than it is to have 5,000?
Yeah, that's a common misread.
And it's characters, but
yeah.
Put that out.
So, yeah, there's 2 things on that. Yeah, like Brian said, is that it's characters, it's not keywords. There's also, we've been doing testing across groups with the help of people like Kevin King, Manny Coates, and some of these guys that are going in there and actually testing to see how many characters are actually getting indexed within the back-end search term fields. So while you've got 5 back-end search term fields that can hold up to 1,000 characters, my recommendation generally is to focus your best quality words and keywords on the first 2 back-end search term fields. You can certainly fill up all 5 rows. However, make sure you put your best foot forward, put your best quality words in the first 1 or 2 fields.
And still make sure make sure to see that those are being indexed. Even still, while 2,000, 2,500 seems to be what a lot of people are reporting. So they're populating 5,000 characters, and it seems that only maybe 2,000 to 2,500 are being actually indexed. Still test that out. It may be less, it may be more. I have clients where we're getting all 5 fields to index, which is interesting because it seems that's less common. But yeah, definitely a lot of folks are doing research on this. If you're not familiar with the idea of making sure it's indexed, really it's pretty simple. You need basically there's 2 ways to do it. There's kind of the bulk way. You can just copy paste a whole bunch of keywords, like an entire field. If it doesn't, sometimes it'll time Amazon out, so maybe split it in half. But if you have 1,000 characters, split it in half, 500 of them, paste it into the search bar. Your product, if it comes up and all those terms are orange in that top bar, then they're being indexed. Typically, you'll find that some will be crossed out, and you'll get 0 results for that long string. Then you need to test individually. And to do that, you're going to need your ASIN, and so that's a unique identifier. There's nothing special about the ASIN, but it's something unique to your product. And you want to add on that keyword, and then you'll see your product pop up, and that keyword will be indexed, and it'll be in orange. But again, kind of a separate discussion because that goes into more listing optimization. And while it influences PPC, it also influences organic visibility as well, which is probably one of the bigger issues with getting those terms indexed. But But yeah, I mean, it's a great question and a great topic, I think. And like you said, Brian, there's a couple guys that are doing a lot of testing on that. So maybe part 2, part 3. I don't know. We've got part 4, I think, covered. This is awesome.
You know, that's one of the things that I tell, you know, that I commonly refer to is that as fast as Amazon is changing the sponsored products platform, we have no shortage of new material to cover each month. So, you know, stick around because we'll be back. We'll have more.
Yeah, I want to agree with what Brian said too. The 2,500 characters seems to be what I see most often, and I think we're still at the same place as far as repeats and commas and stuff go. Right, just keep that stuff out of there. Just spaces.
Yeah, we have theories as far as changing some of those up based off of some, you know, algorithm changes and that kind of stuff. However, they don't work in all categories. They don't work in all situations, and so unfortunately, it's not something we can really recommend. That really kind of you can do some customized testing regarding phrases and commas and front-end content and back-end content and that kind of stuff. But sometimes it's just a case-by-case basis. That's one of the reasons why, you know, a group like ours, you know, as consultants, is that we have to be we're basically at the bleeding edge as far as any kind of changes that Amazon makes. It's hard for, you know, most sellers, they don't have the time or the you know, interest, you know, to keep track of this kind of stuff. And a lot of times, because we deal with so many different accounts, we have kind of a different perspective than a single seller might, in that we can say, you know what, I know that this trick, you know, or this theory works in this category, but it may not work in this other category, and therefore I'm going to apply the rules differently. I can't simply just make a statement into a Facebook group, because you get a whole bunch of people who just adopt it, and it could cause a negative effect if they don't understand the context or the exceptions. And so that's kind of one of the reasons why we have very customized advice when we meet with clients one-on-one.
Yeah, just to add to what Brian said, and actually I just was scrolling through the comments, and Jeff Monson, hope I pronounced your name right, but I do remember you, Jeff, and I remember some of the questions that you've brought up, and you brought it up here with the commas. We did, as a group, we met yesterday, and we talked about this. We are testing it, but as Brian said, we can't really give a recommendation until we have data that shows that it applies across categories, across products, and it's an actual change and not just a one-off, that it worked for somebody to implement phrasing or commas or whatever. So we are looking into it, though, for sure. Like, we definitely are aware of the buzz in the community about certain algorithm changes and things that are working. So we will definitely be getting back to everyone, and so stay tuned.
Just remember that 5,000 is a limit, not a recommendation. You know, the feedback was probably that, you know, that we need more search terms, and then some developer somewhere probably said, well, how about 5,000? And then they just hit enter, and there it is. And now, as a community, you know, it creates the buzz. But yeah, it could be completely arbitrary, essentially.
Yeah, focus on quality, not quantity.
Awesome. All right, guys. So Chris, we got you. We got Aaron Wilt with another question regarding the long-running campaigns. So in regards to the bonus for having a long-running campaign, does that also affect the ad group level or only the campaign level? If we move around keywords between different ad groups within the same long-running campaign, will that mess up the long-running status?
So here's the deal on that. So as far as the whole algorithm goes, is that it's not public knowledge, you know. So it's basically as far as some of the connections that we as the consulting community have within Amazon, and so the feedback that we get from Amazon directly is that actually is at the campaign level. It's not at the ad group level or keyword level. However, we also understand that not everything that we hear or are told applies, you know, in every situation or is 100%. And so a lot of times what we'll do is we'll continue to test to see, okay, is there a difference at the keyword level, at the ad group level, at the campaign level, at the account level, in order to validate what we hear and what we're told as being basically the law. Because frankly, there's some times where we can disprove it, or we can find exceptions, or more importantly, we can find opportunities that are not well known. And so the general rule on that, as far as the long-running campaign, the campaign age, the campaign click-through rate, and the total number of clicks that's accumulated, it's at the campaign level, and so basically, think of it. I kind of the way I explain it usually is think of it if you have a parent product with child variations, and when you have child variations, any reviews you get for any one of those child variations bubbles up to the parent, and so all of them basically get the same number of reviews, basically consolidating all the reviews into one umbrella review. So think of it that way, where all of the click-through rates and clicks that you accumulate at the keyword level, at the ad group level, they all bubble up to benefit the entire campaign. And
It's a
so
great analogy.
yeah, so at this time, I would say it's at the campaign level, but we are testing anyway.
Awesome. All right, Benjamin, you good? Also, we got Manny Coates.
Manny Coates.
Manny Coates. So everybody knows Manny here.
We were dropping his name already.
I know. Who's this Manny guy?
So Mr. Manny Coates says, "Hi guys, glad to be here. If non-relevant keywords can reduce the CTR and thus reduce the score, like the ad score, I guess is kind of what he's referring to, of a particular campaign, do you feel that campaign can affect your overall account, all other campaigns, or would it have zero impact on that? For example, if I have one very good campaign number 1, that has very relevant keyword ad groups, but then I create 4 very broad campaigns with super low CTR keyword phrases, do you think campaign number 1 would be affected over time by the 4 low-quality campaigns?"
In my experience, no, but maybe some of the other guys will have another viewpoint. In my experience, no, that's not the case. And in fact, even when I take on a new account that has a ton of campaigns, we'll go ahead and sort and see which one has the most history, which one has the most age and click-through history. I'll look at click-through rate, and that then essentially becomes our testing campaign. But I may keep the other ones running for different purposes, and I don't see any issue with if the other campaigns have a different type of history. But yeah, some of the other guys may have a different viewpoint. But in my experience, no, Manny, that's not been an issue.
Yeah, the only exception I could think on that is that, like you said, if you've got the same SKU across multiple campaigns, then there might be some kind of metric tracking regarding click-through rate and conversion rates specific to the SKU that may drag down that particular product SKU, not necessarily at the campaign level. So while one campaign, I haven't observed where one campaign would disrupt another one. If you're using too many campaigns and it affects the product, there's a chance. I haven't specifically tested it that way, though.
When he says they're very broad campaigns, that makes me think perhaps they could be splitting impressions from that primary, so-called number 1 campaign. Maybe they would suck some of the impressions away and degrade the performance.
It's possible.
If the bids were all the same?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So basically, if you've got duplicate keywords across multiple campaigns and you're on par as far as your bid, then you'd be splitting traffic between different campaigns, and therefore your click-through rate may reduce. I don't know if that would actually play out. It seems to me like you'd have the same click-through rate on both campaigns, but obviously that depends on how your ad performs also, how the ad resonates with the audience searching for the keyword.
Yeah, I like your idea with the SKU specific even more, though, Brian.
That gets more into the big data mining that we haven't reached yet.
Uh-oh. Cool. All right. So we got Manny. We got Helen M. Thank you, Helen, for the question. We've got, hi, thanks so much for doing this. When testing new keywords in your PPC, what is the best way to be able to track the impact of the changes given that you cannot run a search term report based on date? Also, after making changes on Amazon, how long do you expect to wait to see any impact? Thanks.
Trying to get my head around the questions here.
Yeah, sorry.
Hold on. Let me go about my information here.
The juices died down.
No, we gotta keep the momentum.
I need more coffee.
All right. So when testing new keywords in your PPC, what's the best way to be able to track the impact of the changes, given that you cannot run a search term report based on the date. So I guess like what's the best way to track the changes if that's not available? Also, after making any changes, how long do you expect to see any impact? So any like changes at all? All right. So I think we all have an understanding, right? Or if not, yeah, let me know if you guys need any clarification or anything. Cool.
Yeah. I don't know if maybe one of the other guys want to kick it off.
What I
Well,
do
I would
to
say-
track this kind of data is really just look at last week, and all you can basically do at this point is record that into an Excel spreadsheet and say, the week started with this day, ended with this day, and then, but it looks like they are rolling out some sort of beta of date ranges. I believe that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you can use third-party tools for something like that that let you do date ranges, but they're basically taking your search term report every day and doing deltas with it on the back end. But yeah, I mean, we've all seen the new UI where you can have date range selection in the campaign manager. So hopefully that will be out soon, but it's super duper buggy right now.
Yeah. So I'll just add. I mean, you can definitely look at changes over time in your search term report. So if you're running it weekly, you can do that. You can look at the customer search term at the customer search term level. So in something like a pivot table, you can aggregate. If a certain search term appears in different spots. So if you're testing different match types frequently and basically impressions are going to different places, you can aggregate all that data in a pivot table. But one thing I sometimes will do is the campaign performance report allows us to track daily changes. So I may exact match certain terms, right? And then I'll use that as a way to track changes over time. That's what I use the campaign performance report the most for. It gives me a snapshot of how changes have tracked over time, and you can go to the individual keyword level on an exact match. But yeah, typically I think what most people would be doing is looking at a snapshot every week of the customer search term. I think that's probably more common. If there was only some software that would maybe help with this, I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. If anyone has any ideas.
Yeah, so I guess that kind of ties in is that, yeah, as far as like the version 2 of our software is currently, we just started beta, and it does have that capability, so you expect that to be publicly available probably in the next few weeks here.
Yeah, and while Amazon's going to be including the date range capability in Seller Central, it's not going to have any of the charting or trending features that you're going to see in the third-party software. Theirs is just basic. I can pick a date range and get data. You still got to pull it down, then you've got to run the other date range, pull that down, and compare them on your own. So ideally, third-party software is the way to track this right now.
Yeah, I mean the keywords are easy to do comparison, to do daily changes and that kind of stuff. It's at the search term level, it gets a little more sloppy because of some of the data delays. That becomes a much bigger technical challenge that some of us on the technical side have attempted, and some of us are getting into work, and others are kind of making approximations. But at the same time, it's definitely something we're trying to come up with technical solutions in order to overcome some of the limitations that Amazon has introduced as a result of how they formatted the data regards to search term report.
And the delays are a real problem because, I mean, you essentially have to wait several days before determining if anything worked. And over that several days, you're gathering more data that may or may not be relevant to make your decision on. So I wish their data was faster, but.
Well, and I would also look at it too is that if we're using some best practices as far as like taking a look at the search terms, observing the search terms from search term report, for instance, actually that's probably the only place, right? And actually moving those over into manually targeted keywords, then we're going to be able to track those manually targeted keywords on a daily basis because we can use the daily tracking capability for the campaign performance report. The search term report kind of ties back to my philosophy as far as doing market research and understanding the buyer psychology, not so much of checking every single day to see what did this search term do. Because if you're looking every single day for the changes in a specific search term, then why don't you have that as a keyword that you're bidding on directly? break it
Alright.
out.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we're kind of like, coming down to the wire. We booked this till 2:30, and we got a lot of questions. So I think we should do a lightning round. Just like try to, pump them out. So let's
Go
see
for it.
here. Let's do it. And just like try to get it done. So we did Helen, Laura. Oh man, some of these answers. Oh, it's going to be all right. See how we can do it. So how much does listing conversion rate affect impressions? Paul, you
Is that the whole question?
Yeah. So it's basically saying like on your, so basically on the organic side, how much does organic affect advertising?
You popped up, Paul, first. Your face did, so I'm going to shoot it to you.
Paul's got the open microphone, so it always will.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I think click-through rate is really important, and then after click-through rate, it's how many people buy. So, I mean, it's all historical data that Amazon has. They're always going to do what's best for them. So if you buy, then you're good in their eyes, and they're going to give you that boost.
Ka-ching, ka-ching. All right. So I'll do like a sound afterwards. I don't know how to do a lightning sound, but I'll do a ka-ching.
Hey, Sean, how about meow, 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 meow?
I can do that.
That's it.
All right. We've got Ganka Walbers. In one of the webinars, Brian Johnson said that paying high bid for PPC to have more impressions is a myth. Which one is it? Does it help or it doesn't? All right.
I guess that's going to be on me.
All right. You got 30 seconds, Brian.
Yeah, well, okay. So I'm going to assume that that's one of the Sponsored Products Academy webinars, one of those intros, one as far as that paying high bid for PPC to have more impressions is a myth. I don't recall actually saying it that particular way. The myth was actually referring to simply just spending money in order to get sales is better than. So basically, the concept, basically the myth is that you should spend more money. You should lose money on advertising in order to help with your organic sales. And the reason I don't agree with that is because again, advertising, from my numbers, I see it as having a 20% impact, and so that's why I much more strongly believe in using the advertising for keyword and market research and really understanding the audience in order to benefit how you optimize your product listings, and to maybe when you're launching, certainly when you're launching a product, yeah, you're going to overspend because part of that's going to be your research expense, but that's not a long-term sustainable practice.
Cool. Meow, 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 meow. All right. So I've got a couple comments.
He was uncomfortable doing that, by the way. You can tell.
All right, let's see. So we'll go straight to the questions. So Richard Brownsden says, Amazon selling coach had asked me to increase my daily budget for PPC. Otherwise, I might be missing out on sales. Should I listen to it? For background, I'm spending about 20% of gross sales on advertising per month. But if my ACoS is less than 50% and I'm making a profit on each of those sales, I should keep spending on advertising, right?
I mean, just in general, in terms of the coaching reports, they're saying you can spend more money and get more impressions and potentially more sales, but I believe there's no correlation to competitors there. So you might increase your bid, but your competitors might increase their bid, or you might bid more for keywords and you have other competitors bidding more for keywords. So I guess in a bubble, if it was just you, yeah, you could probably get more impressions and more sales, but it doesn't take into account the fact that there's competition that changes every day. And so I don't put any stock in those reports myself. I don't know about the rest of the guys, but
I'd also question the 50% profit too. There's not a lot of products that actually make 50% net profit before advertising, but yeah, so you may want to double check those numbers. If you're getting that, awesome. I commend you.
Yeah, he's saying it's less than 50%, so he is driving profit sales. I would say 20% of revenue, per month as far as ad spend goes seems pretty high to me. I would maybe kind of refocus on your organic efforts and try to make sure that your percentage of organic sales is where it probably should be. It should be the majority of your sales, right? You might want to find what terms you want to increase rank for and then modify the listing and your offer around those.
Yeah, translate what you've learned from your advertising into getting your product listing more targeted to perform better and to rank higher for organic side.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Jeff says you rock. Thank you, Jeff Monson. You rock as well, my friend. Vicky Connor, what piece of advice or comment do you have for a beginner?
Don't do it. No, I'm kidding.
No. Piece of advice. Start more general. Don't. I guess you at the initial stages, you're trying to collect that data. Everything we've been talking about collecting data, both for understanding what you should be bidding on and who your product caters to in that market research. So I think initially you want to cast a bit of a wider net, and I tend to stay away from exact match types initially. You may do a phrase match on data sets that have been sort of, I call them like vetted data sets. So if you do a reverse ASIN on a competitor, so a keyword inspector or something, I would use phrase match with those in my experience, but incorporate some of those broad match types so you can just kind of cast that net, get educated on your product, get educated on the audience, and monitor your budget. I think that's probably the other thing. Understand the difference between the daily budget and an account cap, like a daily cap. Just get familiar with the terminology, understand how the budgeting works, and kind of cast a wider net. That's what I would say when first starting out. I'm sure the other guys, this would be probably a great question for everyone to kind of throw in their 2 cents, because probably all of you guys have your own ideas, huh?
Yeah, I think when starting out, back to Brian's point on the keywords, is I usually try to recommend starting with 2 phrase keywords to start. And a lot of people will, do Google AdWords search. They'll get all these keywords and they'll just paste them into Amazon. I don't usually recommend that. Curate the list. Find 2-word phrases that are a good match for your product, highly relevant. Start with those on broad match, and you'll start collecting a lot of data along with your auto target. And I've seen a lot of campaigns where they just paste all the words in there and they're bidding on, connection, and their product is like a cup, because you just get random words from Google. So, but be selective in your keywords. Don't just paste everything and everything in there. It's not worth it.
Don't use Amazon's suggested keywords.
I'm going to actually counter that, though.
Yeah?
Amazon's suggested keywords, as far as the single words that they offer, throw those into a campaign with a really low bid. Just throw their own ad group with a really low bid. So, maybe not for a beginner, but I'm saying just in general, like take single words like that and bid 20, 30 cents on it. Just park it and let it sit there.
Yeah, I'll throw this out as a teaser for the next one, and just to piggyback off of Brian's comment, I think a lot of the guys in the group have tried this and are getting success. We're getting a lot of success with kind of that panning technique, and I think Brian was the one who coined that terminology with basically those low bid on broad terms, but there is a methodology to find them, so stay tuned.
For the next time, yeah.
No, it's pretty simple. Look at just low bid on this. A good place to start, like Brian said, that individual keyword suggested. It's probably very relevant. Throw out that low bid and see what comes up. You might be surprised.
Yeah,
you have to be patient.
It
might take some time. Oh, sorry, Paul.
I was just saying those 1 or 2 keyword ad groups can be really effective, and you can get some good sales with really low bids. Especially if it's a really broad keyword, something that's applicable to not just your specific product. It's a really good way to kind of expand out what you're already doing.
Awesome. Because I have to throw in my 2 cents. All right. My 2 cents is, let's see, so advice or comment for a beginner. Really focus on the relevancy of your product. Do a lot of keyword research up front. Spend time really understanding what Amazon and the internet says about your product and things like that. Because because when you do that work up front and you have really, really relevant keywords, you're kind of front-loading the work to make it a little easier. I also agree with the individual keywords with the low bid is a really good idea. If you do that and you're not getting any impressions, because low bid is kind of relative to the space you're in or the category it can be. Because if it's too low, you might not get anything. So I mean, personally, I start off with what I think would be a reasonable low bid, and then I bump it up maybe like a nickel. But the point of the low bid is for it to be low, so I don't go too high. Yeah, so I guess that's my 2 cents for that one. So we're at the, let's see, it's 2:35. We've got, let me see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Why don't we just take like 2 or 3 more questions and then we have to pass it on to the next session?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, yeah, all right, we'll do that. So what we'll do is, all right, guys, everyone who's still watching, which, by the way, great turnout. We're sitting at like 69 people, but we had like 83 people watching. So thank you guys for your time. We really, really appreciate it. You know, it just means a lot that you think we're valuable enough to spend time with. So, all right, so we'll do 1 or 2 more. We'll do 2 more questions, like Johnson and Bowman said, and then I have a slide with our contact information. I'll put it up at the end for a couple minutes, and then you guys can kind of have that for your resource, and I'll put it in here somewhere for access, and maybe we can get the guys to share it in the Facebook group or something, just for access for you guys as well. So the next one is Mr. Keith Armstrong. For the back-end keywords on listings with multiple variations, since it is hard enough to get 5,000 characters, should you just duplicate the keywords to each variation? For a listing with 10 color variations, you could have potentially 50,000 characters. We have about 3,800 characters of great terms, so does it hurt to have them duplicated on each variation?
Does it hurt? No.
Does it hurt? No.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
All right, Keith. I'm just sorry. All right, cool. So it does not hurt, Keith. You are good. Let's see here. Thank you, Keith. Hugh L. Mr. Hugh L. Let's see. Just launched a product June 1st. Promo sales 100 units. Organic sales 113. PPC Auto 106 clicks with 2 unit sales. How do I find out what keywords I rank organically for? What steps can I take to increase pay-per-click auto sales?
That's a whole consulting call by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty big. I'd say be patient. I mean, it hasn't even been that long.
Yeah, if you haven't been running for at least a week, how long has it been running? Oh, launch product on June 1st, okay. 100 units.
I would say, you know, just get familiar with pulling that search term report and kind of get familiar with digging into that information. I think that's like the first place to start. I think there's a lot of good content out there to start understanding the analysis process. But yeah, for specific advice, I think we probably need a little more context. But maybe Brian, you have a thought.
Well, I was going to say it's like in both, like in both the Facebook groups, like for Brian and Brian's, I guess Facebook groups. You know, we do have additional information as well as you know, like Paul's training as well. Is we go into basically how to look at campaigns, how to troubleshoot them. We've got various resources not only in the Facebook groups but also like the Udemy course, much more advanced stuff. Some of the 4-week course that I've got out there too, but the information's already out there, so this isn't really the setting for like a consulting, discussion. But the information is in the Facebook groups. If you just get plugged into those and start reading some of the other questions and looking at the file section in the Facebook groups and checking out like Paul's Udemy course, then you'll get a lot of that information that you need to set a good foundation.
Awesome. All right. So that's our 2 questions. I'll pull up the slide. I'll do a screen share, pull up the slide. But the thing is, let me think here. How do I get it permanently on my? Let's see here. What we'll do is, how about you guys? You guys do your outro, and then afterwards, I'll go ahead and put up the slide. Well, because what'll happen is, if I do a screen share, hold on, let me try it. All right, I'll do my entire screen, and I'll pull it up for everybody.
No, 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 no.
Oh, sorry. Here we go.
I think that's good. I don't know that I need to do an outro because there's my contact and my face, you know.
That's better than anything I could say.
Exactly.
I'll botch it. Just put the slide up.
Exactly. I want to thank everybody who showed up. I definitely, personally, I want to thank each of the other consultants who we all joined together. We do mastermind together, and so we do collaborate on what's working and what's not. We basically, this is something we're doing to give back to the community. It's not something like we're trying to sell anything. Yes, we are consultants, but honestly, most of us are at capacity, so we're not even taking on new clients anyway. So we really are just trying to give back to the communities that help build us up to where we are now. And so as a thank you. I had fun doing this. I can see where we could probably do this again. And, you know, definitely, I just want to say thank you to each of you who joined on the panel today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I had a blast, and it's pretty awesome because we've been meeting frequently, and to be able to sort of meet now. This is basically one of our mastermind meetings, but now we've got we have the public kind of joining in. So it was actually pretty fun to kind of open the doors and kind of do this and answer questions. So very cool, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, pleasure talking to y'all, and hope the audience took something away from it, each and every one of them.
All right,
Yeah,
thanks,
nothing to
guys.
say. Thanks,
All
guys.
right, all right, guys. Can you guys hear me? Hello? Hold on.
Yeah, you're good.
Good? Okay, cool. All right, so can you guys all see the slide right now? Just want to make sure everybody can see it.
Yes.
Yeah? All right, so I know they kind of did their outro, but this is our contact information and our faces and our names and our email addresses. So this is how you can contact all of us if you have any questions or you have certain resource or have any questions or you want to learn more about us. Brian, let's see, we have Brian Johnson, Brent, Jeremy, Sean, Brian, and Paul. Brian, you can find, he's got an agency, Brian R. Johnson. He's got the Sponsored Products Academy, and he's got the PPC group. He's also the founder of PPC Scope, which he mentioned earlier. He didn't mention the name of it, but yeah, they're doing a version 2 right now. So it's awesome. So you guys should check it out. Brent is over at AMZ Pathfinder. He's a consultant as well. Jeremy does consulting. He is at jeremy@amzconsulting.com. We have Paul Scherer at paul@amzppc.com. And we have Brian Bowman over at amzprofitpros.com. He also has a Facebook group, AMZ Profit Pros Facebook group. And then Brian at amzprofitpros.com. And then there's me, Sean Smith. I'm over at junglehustle.com. And so it's like a sponsored products consulting firm. And I'm sean.smith922@gmail. The only Gmail guy. But yeah. What I'm going to do is, if you guys have any feedback, it sounds like the consensus is that we might want to do this again because we have more topics to discuss. So if you guys don't mind, I would love to get feedback around what more we could discuss for you, and also what was good, what could be improved upon, and so that moving forward we can increase the value of this and make it more targeted to you guys. Because that's the ultimate goal here, like Brian was saying, educating you guys and giving back to the community. So again, thank you guys so much, and reach out to me, sean.smith922@gmail.com with that feedback, or leave it in the comments on the YouTube or the events page, and then I can kind of put those together, and then moving forward, if we set another one of these up, we'll have context to make it improved. Also, if you want to send us your contact information as well, we can have that on hand. So when we do another one of these, we can send it out to you to let you know when it is. Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much for doing this with us. We hope it brought a ton of value, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Yeah. Thanks.